Hey guys, welcome back to Abundant Family Homestead. I'm Mary, and today I have a very special little guest for you. This is my daughter, Miriam. Do you want to say hello? She's in there somewhere. There she is. Miriam is a few weeks old now, and I wanted to talk to you about how we had a very positive experience in a hospital giving birth to her. It did not go according to our plans, as often happens with births. And I just thought I'd share it with you. And I hope that you find some of it useful if you're planning on giving birth soon. I hope it's a little bit of encouragement. I want you to know that she is our 12th child. We prayed very hard for her. We wanted another baby. We're a very pro-life family. And we didn't know that we were going to have her. She was conceived after 4 miscarriages, and that was a very difficult time for us. And so this is her story. With all of my other births, I had them in hospitals. Actually, I had them in one hospital. And we had all of our babies with the same doctor until this baby. And the reason for that is that we wanted to have more options in our birth story. We wanted to be able to have a midwife, and we wanted different options instead of just having, the typical what they offer at the hospital being all of the painkillers, and I just didn't want to go to the same place again. So we found a different place to go and give birth. I signed up to give birth in Pittsburgh, which is about an hour from us. We are in Ohio. And I went with some midwives that were highly recommended, and they were very good. I really appreciated them. It was a very different experience going to them because they said, oh, whatever you want, that's fine. Yeah, if you want to give birth with any of the medications, that's fine. If you want Pitocin, we can do that. If you want, we can break your water. And I didn't really want all those. I wanted to know that I had options to give birth without having any drugs. And they said, yeah, they're like, that's not a problem. We have lots of people that do that here. So we decided to stick with them, and we were going to give birth in Pittsburgh, which was so different. So we went through the pregnancy and we had no troubles. The midwives were wonderful. We got to about 35 weeks when the midwife finally said, because of your age, we want you to consider induction at 39 weeks. I said, oh, that's interesting. Why is that? And they said, because the placenta will start breaking down and that can cause a problem for the baby. And I did not like that very much. I went and did some research and found that yes, it could happen. There is a possibility, but it seemed more like a fear tactic to me. I had had 11 other babies and everybody did very well. Even my last one that was born at 39. I was 39 years old when I had my last one. And this time I'm 43. I'm kind of sad to admit that on camera, but you know what? It's okay. It'll be all right. For all you older moms, it's going to be okay. So we got to, like I said, we got to the point where the midwives really wanted induction. And I started going to those weekly appointments. And finally, we got to 37 weeks. And they were like, we'd like to schedule you for an induction. And I said, well, the baby's measuring fine, right? And they said, yeah. And I said, and the ultrasound that we had recently, she looked strong. Everything looked good. There was no problems. They said, yeah, that's true. And I said, well, let's monitor her and see how she does. And if there is any problems, I have no problem being induced. Like, I've done it so many times. So we continued and got to 39 weeks. And I was actually surprised that I made it to 39 weeks because we've had so many children. Typically what happens is the more children you have, the quicker they come. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the earlier they will come. So knowing that all of my children were born before 40 weeks, either through induction or through them just deciding to come at, I think my earliest was 37. And the one that came at 37 weeks was the child previous to this one. And I thought, if she came at 37 weeks, I'm probably going to have this baby before 40 weeks. But we got to 39 weeks and they were like, we should induce. It's probably about time. And I said, if we're very worried about it, we will schedule, but let's wait till I hit 40 weeks. Time came and I hit 40 weeks and I said, okay, we can schedule an induction. Let's schedule it for the next Monday, which would put me at 40 weeks and 5 days. And I said, that will probably be plenty of time for her to come. And then I stressed. And I think we got to the point that I was like, well, I'm so stressed that I'm not having the baby. That must be the reason why. So we tried everything, guys. It was so funny. I tried scrubbing floors. I tried taking some supplements. I tried all the movements that are supposed to move the baby down into place. I think my daughter at one point came home from school, and she's in college. She came home with little nail polish, and she goes, "Mom, I know the problem. I know why you're not having this baby." She said, "Your toenails aren't painted." She said, "We did that with every one of the other children. Every one of them, you painted your toenails and you went into labor." And I said, "Okay, we'll try it." It didn't work. My youngest boy said, "Mom, if you eat these cookies, these chocolate cookies, then you're going to have the baby." "Okay, I'll eat the chocolate cookies," just to appease him. But so we tried so many things. I tried stair walking. I tried on the treadmill, just everything. So we finally got to the night before when I was supposed to go in and get induced. And I finished scrubbing the floors. I did everything. Ready to go. I had my bag packed. I said, "Lord, I really don't want to go in and be induced. I wanted this to be a natural labor." And sure enough, I had a few contractions. And I was like, okay, they're not very strong. That's okay. I'm going to bed. If I wake up in the middle of the night, great. I'm going to have her without the Pitocin, without breaking my water. And if I go into labor, that would be awesome. So about 1:30, I got really uncomfortable in bed. My back started to hurt really bad. And I woke up and I was like, I got to reposition. I'm so uncomfortable. And I realized that was a very strong contraction. It wasn't just my back hurting. So I stayed in bed, rolled over, got comfortable. And the next contraction came about 10 minutes later. And then another one 10 minutes later. And finally, at 2 o'clock, I was like, time to get out of bed. I think this could be labor. We'll see what happens. If I get out of bed and I walk around and it goes away, then obviously it was false labor. It was just, pre-labor. I think it's called prodromal labor or something like that. So got out of bed, walked around, sat up, and they kept coming. And I said, okay, every 10 minutes, I saw that they were coming, and I was like, all right, well, maybe this is it. So I shuffled around. I opened up one of my notebooks and had notes in there on what to do in early labor and how to handle the pain, and went over all of the different options on how to help it progress faster and how to walk and how to do squats and stuff. And finally, I would say around 3 o'clock, they got shorter. By that point, it was probably about 5 minutes apart. And I know with my last birth, when I got to 5 minutes apart, I said, it's time to go. We got to go because I'm going to have this baby anytime. But she came much later. She actually was 5 minutes apart for I forget, maybe 10 hours. It was a very long labor for her. So finally 3 o'clock came along, 5 minutes apart. And I was like, do I wake up my husband? Do I try to get some help? And at that point, I was like, I really can't breathe not breathing. I really can't talk through these anymore. Like, I feel like I really have to focus on my breathing. And I said, if I'm focusing on my breathing that hard, it's probably a good sign we're advancing. Now, I knew that the baby's head was still high. Um, I didn't have pressure at that point. No show, nothing. So I woke him up. I said, "Hey, honey, I think it's about time to get into the car. We've got an hour drive. I'm in labor." And he got up and started getting ready, started packing the car. And it was December, okay, when I had her. So we had to warm up the car because it was freezing and I'm so sensitive to cold. And I think I finally waddled to the car around 3:40, 3:45. I walked out to the car and got in, and I had to stop in between. I stopped at the couch by the door so I could breathe through one, and I stopped at the car before I sat down because I had another contraction, and got into the car. And he said, "Okay, it's time to go. We'll head out to Pittsburgh." And I said, "Okay, great." And we started on our way to Pittsburgh. Like I said, it was about 3:40. And we got about 10 minutes into the drive. And I said, "Honey, call ahead to the hospital and see if the specific doctor was there, because I think she's going to come sooner than making it to Pittsburgh. I don't think we're going to make it out to Pittsburgh." So we called ahead, and that doctor was on call. So we were really excited about that. And I said, "Let's keep driving. As soon as we hit that exit, like, we'll decide if we're going to turn off and go to the local hospital or keep going to Pittsburgh," which was my preferred hospital. And we made it to the exit, and he said, "Do I turn here?" And I said, "You're going to have to, because I feel pressure. I think she's going to be here really soon." So he turned off the exit, and we got to the hospital around 4. And when I checked in, they wheeled me up to the room, and that was very painful because those contractions were coming, and she was pushing down on that area. So they got me up to the room, and the nurse was so sweet. She's like, "So what's going on?" And I said, "I'm in labor." And she said, "Okay, well, we'll check and see how far you've progressed." And she checked, and she said, "I can't even tell how dilated you are because the bag is just bulging." She said, "So I'm going to call the doctor." I said, "Okay, great idea." So she called the doctor, and I said, "How long till the doctor's here?" And she goes, "Well, it's about 30 minutes. And I said, "I don't think I have that much time." And she said, "Well, if you have the baby before then, that's fine. I was able to help one other lady this evening, and it's going to be okay." So she reassured me, and we got moved to a birthing room. I'm looking at my notes too, so I don't forget anything, guys. And from one room just around the corner to the other, I felt a lot of pressure, and I was very uncomfortable. So I sat on the bed, and they're trying to move the monitor around to hear the baby's heartbeat. Her heartbeat was good. Everything was fine. And I said, I just don't feel comfortable. I'm like, I don't know how this is going to happen. I still have my bag of waters intact. I said, "What happens if I give birth with the bag of water?" And they're like, "Oh, that probably won't happen because it doesn't usually. So what you can do is turn on your side and put a birthing peanut between your legs. And if your water is really going to break, it'll break." And so I was like, "Give me the birthing peanut because I'm so uncomfortable." They gave it to me. I turned on my side, and bag of water broke right away. And I became very uncomfortable at that point because she was up higher, and her head finally came down into the birth canal. And I was like, there's a lot of pressure. And so the nurse checked me again, and she goes, "Okay, well, you're fully dilated, so you're good to go." And I said, "But where's the doctor?" And she's like, "He's not here." And I said, "I understand that, but how long till he's here?" And she goes, "I'm not sure." And she goes, "Well, if you have pressure and you need to push, then just go ahead and push. There's no one stopping you. It's going to be all right." And so within a few seconds, I felt that urge. I had to get her out. I pushed her twice and she came out so fast. Her head was turned out to the side toward my leg, and so was her body. Her body was in a very funny position, and 2 pushes and she was out. And she was beautiful. She started crying right away, strong lungs. They checked her over and she did very well. So there's a couple takeaways from this too that I wanted to talk to you guys about. With giving birth to that many children, I have experienced many, many things in the hospital. I've gone through the inductions, I've gone through them breaking water, I've gone through having epidurals, and I have to tell you that there is a huge difference between having Pitocin and not having Pitocin. With my daughter just before her, I had Pitocin with her labor, and it hurt so bad. So much, it was so much more intense than Miriam's labor and delivery that by the end, I was begging for an epidural. And it was too late, and we gave birth to her naturally, and that was wonderful that she was all right. But I felt beat, and I was tired, and the recovery was so hard. And I had a lot of afterbirth pain with my last one. And with this one, it was so much easier. I felt good. I came back home and I felt bruised. And they let you go after one day at this hospital. So I came home and I felt a little bruised, but it's nothing beyond just, I didn't have to take any painkillers for it. And I was very grateful for that too. I just took a little bit of homeopathics and that really helped. And we can get to that in future videos. I'd love to share with you all the things that I did to help my body to prepare for giving birth, because there's a lot to learn in that. And I feel like with all the labors I've gone through, the ones that did the best, I did certain interventions beforehand to prepare my body to give birth. So I highly encourage all of you that if you're going to have a baby and you want to do it naturally, try to avoid the Pitocin. The Pitocin is very difficult on your body. So that's our birth story for baby number 12. And if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. And then please like and subscribe to the channel so that you can hear more about all of these beautiful things that we've been through, and I want to share them with you. And I'd love to help you get through your journey. So take care. God bless.